Lake Khövsgöl in Mongolia holds nearly 70% of the nation's surface fresh water and is among the world's deepest and clearest alpine lakes. Do you know the Gobi Desert's flaming cliffs, Bayan-Ölgii, gave paleontology its first dinosaur eggs and still yields fossils that rewrite Earth's prehistory? Orkhon Valley is one of the world's rare landscapes where braided rivers, volcanic outcrops, and continuous traces of nomadic life form an unbroken cultural and ecological tapestry. Do you know that within this valley lie ancient imperial capitals, horse training ridges, and irrigation systems that reveal how steppe societies engineered water centuries before modern maps? Grasslands ripple like green oceans here, punctuated by lonely monuments called deer stones that may predate written history. Herders still follow seasonal circuits that align with pathways carved by horsemen of emperors long gone. The Orkhon River threads the valley, its slow meanders creating fertile ribbon bars, where wildflowers and ancient burial mounds sit side by side. Look closer and you'll find petroglyphs and stone stelae that memorialize battles, horses, and celestial beliefs in weathered scripts. At the valley's heart, the ruins of Karakorum whisper about the Mongol Empire's first great capital and the meeting place of traders from east and west. Yet the living culture remains. Families in gairs tend flocks using hunting techniques refined over millennia, keeping the landscape functioning. Scientists value Orkhon as an open-air library where pollen deposits, soil layers, and preserved grazing patterns reveal climate shifts and human response. Archaeologists here can walk from Bronze Age barrows to medieval city walls in a single afternoon, tracing continuity rarely visible elsewhere. Seasonal fires, controlled grazing, and migration created a mosaic of habitats that support rare steppe birds and endangered mammals. The valley's isolation protected these processes until recent decades, making it a vital case study for balancing tradition and conservation. Traveling along the river, you move through time. Pastoralist songs still guide the herds where emperors once reviewed cavalry. Each gear doorway frames the same horizon that inspired nomadic leaders, poets, and astronomers whose legacies are etched into the land. To walk Orkhon is to read layers of survival and invention, how people engineered wells, roads, and winter shelters to thrive on extremes. Exploring its trails connects natural rhythms with human stories and reveals why this valley earned a spot among the world's most precious heritage sites. Here, the modern nomad negotiates globalization using satellite phones and solar panels while still reading weather in the flight of cranes. Beyond the craggy ridges of the Gobi Altai lies the Bayankhongor sand sea, where dunes rise like living sculptures under a sky that seems bottomless. These dunes are extraordinary for their sudden marriage of desert sands and alpine streams, a rare convergence found in only a handful of places on Earth. By day, the sand burns gold, and sculpted ripples move with winds that carry stories from distant plateaus. By night, temperatures plunge, and the firm sand preserves tracks of wolves and Argali sheep, a silent record of survival. Local herders pitch gears on dune margins, grazing sheep and camels where moisture pockets allow small grasses to cling to life. Their seasonal routes trace ancient corridors that link Bayankhongor's sands with the green valleys and then onward to the stony canyons of the Gobi. Walk the ridgelines and you may find glassy quartz fragments and fossilized bones, hints of a deeper, older landscape buried by moving sand. These quiet relics connect the dunes to Mongolia's fossil-rich past, bridging dunes to the hidden cliffs where paleontologists once unearthed giants. During rare rains, ephemeral lakes swell between dunes, attracting flocks of migratory birds that turn a desert into a sudden oasis. The sight of hundreds of waders standing against a backdrop of endless sand is one of those contradictions that makes Bayankhongor unforgettable. At sunrise, wind-carved faces throw sharp shadows and the hum of singing sands, a low tonal vibration when dry granules shear, can be heard if you listen closely. Scientists still debate the exact mechanics, but to nomads, it's been an old warning and a musical landmark for generations. From these dunes, A stony trail descends toward river valleys where hot springs seep from the Gobi Altai, linking sand to snow-capped heights. That natural thread draws travelers onward, a seamless transition from desert solitude to mountain refuge that few landscapes accomplish so seamlessly. Every footprint tells a layered history, traces of tatars, nomadic hunters, and the gradual reclaiming of ruins by wind and sand. Follow those paths, and the dunes will lead you toward the next wonder, where rocky outcrops and open sky reveal why Bayankhongor is a crossroads of extremes. Baga Gazrin Chulu rises like a granite island from the Mongolian steppe, its weathered domes and narrow canyons forming one of the world's rare compact rock massifs within an arid desert landscape. Do you know that at Baga Gazrin Chulu, monks, nomads, and travelers have carved caves, painted shrines, and secret inscriptions into the stone, turning the rock into a living library of human stories? Inside its fissures, cool springs collect and sustain a surprising patchwork of grasses and lichens that do not grow anywhere for miles around. That microhabitat shelters insects and migratory birds that use the rocky outcrop as a stepping stone across the endless steppe. At dawn, the granite catches light, like a weathered cathedral, and you can still find traces of prayer stones and small Buddhist stupas tucked into ledges. Local herders tell of hermits who retreated into narrow caves, leaving votive offerings and chalk inscriptions that map centuries of devotion. Yet much remains unrecorded, preserved only in songs and the memory of families who still name each cave and boulder. Walk slowly here, and you can feel layers of history underfoot. Footsteps of traders, prayers of monks, and the steady hoofbeats of herds that have circled these stones for generations. The human stories are braided with the geology. Wind and frost sculpted the granite, while humans added their marks, creating a palimpsest of nature and culture. Baga Gazrin Chulu is a place where the steppe's flatness becomes intimate and vertical, a rare pocket that teaches you how isolation can create extraordinary connections. Stay long enough, and this compact labyrinth will point you onward, to dunes, to shrines, to the long lines of the horizon, where Mongolia's next wonder waits. Central Mongolia's steppe grasslands contain one of the world's last intact temperate grassland ecosystems, a continuous sea of feathergrass and fescue that stretches farther than most maps can capture. Do you know that the rewilding of Przewalski's horse began here, in Hustai National Park, where a small herd helped revive a species extinct in the wild until the late 20th century? Under the open sky, nomadic families still move with the seasons, folding yurts like living pages and following water and green shoots across the horizon. These migrations stitch the steppe to the Orkhon Valley, where ancient rivers carved a corridor of life, and UNESCO-recognized history links pastoral tradition to imperial roots. At dawn, the light turns the grass into waves, and the soundscape is horseshoes on soil, birds of prey, and the low conversation of herders. These corridors are crucial for migration, nesting birds, and the ancient routes that link central plains to farther deserts and mountains. To stand on the central steppe is to understand scale, not as emptiness, but as the infrastructure of life, resilience, and memory. Later in the film, we will move east and south, letting the steppe hand off its stories to the dunes and alpine pine meadows beyond. Listen for the herders' songs that carry information across kilometers, a subtle language of animals, weather, and kinship. Their songs and seasonal rhythms will follow us as we travel, connecting grazing plains to the guarded sanctuaries where wild horses still breed. By tracing a single river valley, you can move from grassland campfires to stone monuments that remember thousand-year-old migrations. And each step reveals how central Mongolia's steppe is less a backdrop and more the active character in the nation's ongoing story. Tsagaan Suvraga's towering white limestone cliffs, carved from an ancient seabed, form one of the world's rare chalk monoliths. Do you know? Tsagaan Suvraga hides fossilized marine ripple marks and shells that prove this desert was once a shallow sea. From a distance, they rise like a giant stupa against rust-colored dunes, a white spine in the Gobi's palette. Their porcelain faces fracture into ribs and caverns that catch light differently as the day shifts, revealing pale murals of mineral flow. Nomadic herders still move flocks beneath those cliffs, reading weather and pasture, the way geologists read strata. Archaeologists occasionally find fragments of ancient shells and bone, linking Tsagaan Suvraga to the Gobi's broader fossil narrative. Walk along the base and you can trace sediment bands like pages in an earth diary, each layer a different climate chapter. Those layers form a geological bridge to nearby sites such as the Flaming Cliffs, where prehistoric bones once surfaced. In late afternoon, the cliffs cast long, cool shadows that guide travelers toward hidden valleys and salt flats. Follow those shadows, and the track naturally bends toward Bayan-Ölgii, the Flaming Cliffs, tying one chapter of the Gobi to the next. For generations, shamans treated the White Stupa as a place of passage, where land, sea memory, and spirits intersect. Today it is protected, and each careful footprint feels like a conversation with deep time. Seasonal rains trace faint mineral streaks down the cliffs, fleeting paintings that photographers race to capture. Small birds nest in narrow ledges, and their calls on still mornings turn the white face into a living, whispering sculpture. From Tsagaan Suvraga, the road curves toward dunes and riverless valleys, where the Gobi writes new chapters in stone. Leaving the White Stupa behind, you carry with you the echo of an ancient sea and the path that leads straight to the Flaming Cliffs. High in central Mongolia, the Khangai taiga holds one of the largest intact stands of Siberian larch and juniper in the world, where rivers born from glacier-fed springs braid through ancient valleys. Do you know that some streams here run underground for kilometers before bursting back to the surface, feeding wetlands that sustain migratory birds and rare fish? From the moss-carpeted forest floor to windswept alpine meadows, the Khangai is a living archive of landscapes shaped by ice and fire. Wolves trail along ridgelines, and elusive Argali sheep graze on high slopes, while nomadic families follow seasonal rhythms with yurts pitched near warm mineral springs. Travel here from the Gobi or the steppe, and the contrast is immediate. The air cools, and the scent of resin replaces dust. Rivers such as the Orkhon and Onon begin in these mountains and carve the stories of Mongolia downstream, linking forests to ancient human settlements. Herds of yaks and horses move through corridors that are older than recorded history, and every spring the taiga explodes into a tapestry of alpine flowers. Traditional herders still read the land like a book, listening for changes in snowpack and spring water, and passing knowledge through generations. Hidden canyons shelter petroglyphs and rock tombs that speak to Bronze Age travelers who once navigated these same passes. Conservation efforts here aim to balance pastoral livelihoods with habitat protection, creating community reserves that protect forests and predators alike. In winter, the valleys become a silent cathedral of snow, where breath crystallizes and must tell stories of foxes and lynx. Scientists come to monitor shifting tree lines and permafrost thaw, because what happens in the Khangai will ripple into Mongolia's rivers and grasslands. Local elders map seasonal water like cartographers of memory. Their maps lead onward to the Orkhon Valley. Lake Khövsgöl contains about 70% of Mongolia's fresh water and ranks among the world's oldest and clearest alpine lakes. Do you know Lake Khovsgol is often called the younger sister of Lake Baikal because its pristine waters feed rivers that eventually pour into Baikal? At over 260 meters deep and stretched across 136 kilometers of shoreline, Khovsgol hides submerged forests and fossils that date back millennia. Local herders say the lake's ice sings in winter, a cracking musical chorus caused by temperature shifts that people along the Siberian taiga swear foretells storms. In summer, the water is so clear you can see 20 meters down and watch trout and grayling dance above ancient stones. Fewer than 1 in 1,000 visitors reach the Darkhad Valley, where nomads still move their yurts with reindeer, keeping traditions older than any map. The lake's rim is a living seam between steppe and forest, where larch taiga climbs toward the Sayan Mountains and wildflowers carpet the slopes. Yet climate shifts are changing freeze dates and the depth of the ice, altering migration patterns of birds and fish that have nested here for thousands of years. Local communities balance tourism with ritual respect, inviting visitors to learn throat singing, saddle a pony, and listen to elders recite river names in a language close to the land. The result is a living museum where science and superstition meet, where modern researchers dive to catalog microscopic life, while shamans still read the water's moods. Next, we'll trace footsteps from Khovsgol's pebbled shores to the higher passes that open onto Mongolia's vast northern frontiers, showing how one lake holds the keys to many stories. But first, take another look at Khovsgol's depth and clarity, because the lake keeps secrets that only the brave, patient, and curious ever find. Kwitin Peak on the Tavan Bogd Massif in Bayan-Ölgii rises to 4,374 meters, capped by ancient glaciers that feed crystal alpine lakes. Do you know that those Tavan Bogd glaciers cradle the Khoton and Kurgan lakes, creating isolated ecosystems where rare mountain flora and hardy mammals persist? In the valleys below, Kazakh nomads hone a hunting tradition, almost extinct elsewhere, training golden eagles to hunt foxes and hares from horseback. These berkuchi keep centuries-old techniques alive. Their leather masks, eagles' hoods, and winter camps, forming a living bridge between humans and the high peaks. From Ölgii's markets to the yurts scattered across alpine meadows, the province's culture is braided with its geography, each pasture shaped by meltwater and wind. When you follow a river down from the glaciers, you pass stony slopes into meadows where herds of sheep and shaggy horses graze under watchful eagles. In autumn, the Golden Eagle Festival transforms Ölgii into a stage where hunters demonstrate speed, control, and bond with their birds in contests that feel prehistoric. Beyond spectacle, these contests preserve knowledge: how to read mountain weather, find hidden game, and navigate landscapes where GPS often fails. Tavan Bogd National Park shelters not just human traditions, but elusive fauna. Argali sheep carve routes along ridgelines, and snow leopards ghost through scree. The same glaciers that sculpt those ridges recharge spring wells for remote families, linking ice high on Kwitin to the tea kettles in distant yurts. Travel here is a chain of connections: a glacier, to a lake, to a pasture, to a festival, each place handing off stories to the next. Meeting an elder in Ölgii, you hear maps told as memories of hunting grounds and migratory paths that mirror the watercourses from the peaks. Hidden songs, Kazakh embroidery, and the patient watch of an eagle on a gloved fist are not just culture, they are survival shaped by Bayan-Ölgii's rare high-altitude world. Stay with us, and we'll trace those lines from snow to saddle, revealing why this remote province feels like a living atlas of mountain life. You'll witness small wonders: ice-polished stones, the cry of a shepherd's dog, a child's first falconry lesson, details that stitch the landscape into memory. And by the end of the journey, you'll understand how a peak like Kwitin quietly dictates the rhythms of life across valleys and steppes far below. Hidden among wind-sculpted dunes is the Flaming Cliffs, where Mongolia's Gobi Desert gave the world its first dinosaur eggs. Do you know that Bayan-Ölgii, the Flaming Cliffs in the Gobi, yielded fossilized skeletons and eggs that rewrote paleontology? Beyond those ochre cliffs lies the vastness of Khangai and Els, the so-called singing dunes that roar like distant thunder when the sand shifts. At night, temperatures plunge and the dunes conserve ancient secrets, while nomads pitch gur encampments beneath stars so clear they seem almost close enough to touch. This is a desert of extremes where summer heat can bake the ground and winter freezes it into a glassy plain, making Gobi one of the few cold deserts on Earth. Wind-carved canyons and hidden oases like Yolin Am, with its stubborn patches of ice, show a landscape that refuses to be stereotypically wiped. Wildlife here adapted in astonishing ways: Bactrian camels with double humps, elusive snow leopards on remote ridges, and wild asses that race across the steppe. In the shallow basins, rare saxaul shrubs hold fragile soil and provide what little shade is available, a testament to survival against the elements. Travelers who cross the Gobi witness sudden horizons where rock meets skionai, and relics of the Silk Road punctuate the emptiness, linking this now quiet desert to ancient trade. Archaeological sites scatter like punctuation marks, connecting the once bustling caravan routes to the fossil beds that made scientists rewrite Earth's history. The Gobi also hides meteorite fragments and strange stone formations, clues to violent cosmic and geological events that shaped the region. Local guides will tell you that the desert seems to remember. Storms will reveal bones or pottery in an instant, then swallow them again under fresh sand. From the flaming cliffs to the singing dunes, the landscape teaches patience, inviting visitors to listen for the stories written in strata and wind. Each turn in the Gobi threads into the next, a continuous tapestry where paleontology, nomadic culture, and raw geology meet across miles of shifting ground. To step into the Gobi is to enter a living museum where the past is not behind glass, but buried, breathing, and waiting to be found. And beyond the horizon, the next place, whether a salt flat, a fossil bed, or a nomad's campfire, is never more than a dune away. The Gobi's contrasts, silence, and sudden storms, scarcity and abundance, create a paradox that keeps scientists, historians, and travelers returning. In the next segment, we will follow a paleontologist's trek from excavations at Bayan-Ölgii to evenings beside nomadic fires, revealing what each grain of sand can tell us. Onon River Valley is one of the rare, largely undisturbed river headwaters in Eurasia that still links Alpine Springs to endless Steppe. Do you know the Onon River is tied to Dalun Bulldog, the site many Mongolians believe marks the origins of Genghis Khan and his nomadic lineage. Here the water runs clear from the Khenti Mountains, threading through larch forests and willow-lined meadows. Herders follow its bends with yurts, horses, and ancient songs, keeping traditions that mirror the river's slow rhythms. Hidden pools harbor rare amphibians and riverine plants that vanish elsewhere as landscapes modernize. Migratory birds use the valley as a refuge, turning quiet mornings into a chorus of unexpected life. Pale summer skies reveal horsemen tracing paths that once linked Onon to the vast Amur watershed in Siberia. The river eventually joins with the Shilka to feed the mighty Amur, carrying stories and seeds far beyond Mongolia's borders. Archaeologists and elders point to subtle mounds and stone patterns beside the banks, clues of campsites that survived for a millennium. Follow the river, and you can map the movement of people, trade, and memory, from mountain springs to Russian plains. At dusk, the valley folds into a tapestry of colors, where lichens glow and foxes leave spoor in soft mud. Night brings a sky so pure that constellations feel like signposts over a landscape unchanged by dams or highways. The Onon is more than water. It's a living archive linking sacred places like Orkhon and Onon to everyday life on the steppe. Walking its banks, you encounter elders recounting genealogies, children learning to read weather from the river's mood. This continuity reveals why conservation here is not just ecological, but cultural, preserving stories that would otherwise wash away. Small conservation initiatives now partner with herders to safeguard spawning grounds and riparian forests, stitching tradition into science. Yet the valley faces quiet threats: warming winters, changing flood patterns, and pressures to open roads into remote valleys. Understanding Onon means recognizing how a single river can anchor identity, biodiversity, and a nation's least known histories. In this film, we'll follow a gear-to-gear pilgrimage along the Onon's bends, tracing springs to their source and the myths that rise with them. You'll meet those who read the river like a book and discover why the Onon remains Mongolia's secret artery. We will move from these riverine terraces to neighboring pine-clad ridges, where another chapter of Mongolia's wild mosaic waits. But first, linger on the water, listen to the current, and imagine what centuries of footsteps have left along its edges. The high Altai range contains one of the planet's rare south-facing glaciers that persist within an arid steppe climate. Do you know the high Altai harbors over 500 glacial bodies clustered around Altai Tavan Bogd, some descending into valleys normally reserved for desert winds. Jagged granite summits, like Khwitan Peak, pierce the sky, their snowfields feeding blue ice that grinds rock into sweeping moraines. Those moraines dam crystal lakes such as Orkhon and Onon, creating alpine basins that sustain migratory birds and pastoral herds. From the glacial tongues trickle rivers that stitch together isolated ecosystems, linking high alpine tundra to lower steppe and riverine oases. Local herders follow these waterways, guiding flocks between summer pastures beneath wind-scoured ridgelines and sheltered valley meadows. Follow a single melt stream, and it will take you past yak corrals, through birch stands, and toward sweeping basalt plateaus where eagles nest. Photographers chase light that scours the peaks at dawn, revealing colors that shift from iron red to glassy blue as glaciers reflect a thin atmosphere. Cartographers, too, are racing to redraw maps as tongues advance and retreat, reshaping watersheds that define local borders and grazing rights. To stand among the high Altai peaks is to sense a fragile engine of life, simultaneously ancient, dynamic, and intimately connected to Mongolia's lowland landscapes. In the next segment, we will follow one meltwater stream down into the valleys, tracing how ice-borne water becomes the lifeblood for communities and wildlife. In Mongolia's western reaches, Altai Tavan Bogd National Park shelters the only place in the country where 5 peaks rise above 4,000 meters within a single massif. Do you know Altai Tavan Bogd National Park is home to Mongolia's highest peak, Khwitan, and glaciers whose melt patterns help climate scientists reconstruct centuries of regional weather. Beneath those summits, ancient rock paintings and burial mounds whisper of Bronze Age hunters and the Silk Route caravans that once threaded this high country. Wild Bactrian camels do not traverse these heights, but snow leopards, ibex, and the elusive Argali sheep test the limits of survival on sheer ledges and ridgelands. Nomadic Kazakh herders still raise yak and cashmere goats here, moving their gears with the seasons and keeping traditions of eagle hunting alive on windswept plateaus. Glacial lakes like Khoton and Khovsgol reflect jagged peaks and shift colors with the light, offering fresh water that feeds rivers running toward deserts and distant oases. Walkers who cross the Khovsgol region find trails that thread between moraines and steppe, each valley a corridor of plants and birds adapted to thin air and fierce winters. Scientists and filmmakers come for the rare permafrost patches and botanical pockets that harbor endemic species found nowhere else on the Eurasian steppe. Altai Tavan Bogd's remote beauty is not frozen in time. Climate change and modern roads are pulling new routes through the park, changing nomad lives and animal patterns. Yet these changes also make Altai a living laboratory, where conservationists collaborate with herders to track snow leopard movements and preserve migration corridors. From ridge to river, the park connects westward to the rugged borderlands and the cultural tapestry of Bayan-Ölgii province, setting the stage for the next chapter of Mongolia's wilds. To understand how these high peaks shape rivers, traditions, and survival, we follow a herder and a scientist down from Khoitin's shadows into the valleys below. From the glassy mirror of Khovsgol's waters to the thunderous ridges of the Altai, Mongolia's wild heart beats in gradients of color and sound. Each valley and dune is linked by ancient rivers and the footsteps of nomads, weaving stories that begin at the mountain and end in the Gobi's burning silence. Hustai's grasslands still echo with the return of Przewalski's horse, and those same grasses once fed caravans that crossed the Orkhon Valley toward imperial capitals. From the fossil-rich flaming cliffs to the crystal springs of Bayan-Ölgii, fossils, yurts, and temples sit side by side as proof that time here folds in on itself. The eagle hunters of Bayan-Ölgii keep a bond with the steppe that feels prehistoric, yet their traditions are threaded into markets and modern lives in Ulaanbaatar. Journeys across salt flats and over sand seas reveal not just geology, but the resilience of those who read the weather in cloud lines and animal tracks. If you leave with one image, let it be this: a single horizon that contains an ocean of skies, a tapestry of human memory, and the invisible lines that connect every place we visited. Hold on to the knowledge that Mongolia's wildness is not sealed in postcards, but lives in movement, of rivers, horses, and the people who still follow seasons rather than calendars. There are more secrets buried beneath the sands and in the folds of those mountains, and the next time you listen, the land will tell you a new one. So travel slowly, ask better questions, and let Mongolia change the way you measure time.